From the creators of the original Cheat Sheet Rankings, this is the Fantasy Index Podcast. Brought to you by Fantasy Index, the original and best since 1987. Now your hosts, Luke Wilson and Colt Williams.
Welcome back, everyone out there in listener land, to the Fantasy Index Podcast. My boy Colt Williams here with me tonight to talk about Week 4 action in the NFL. Monday Night Football, was that our last doubleheader for a while? Do we have another one on deck? I don't even know.
I think it is the last one for a little while. I'm excited to announce. It looks like that it is. So yeah, I'm really... well, the good thing about this one was I barely had to watch any of the Titans-Dolphins game because it was like I had to wait 1 hour, get a little bit of a pre-football. That was like my pre-game for it. It's a preliminary. So if you watch UFC or anything like that, like they have the prelims, and that's what that was. It was some
undercard.
Yeah, so undercard, and there we go. So yeah.
You find out that Mason Rudolph and Snoop Huntley, are going to be facing off in prime time, and you assume it's going to be a recipe for fantasy points just up and down, left, right, and center, but somehow didn't happen. Obviously, Mason Rudolph, you're like, wait, doesn't he play for the Steelers? Mason Rudolph in Tennessee as Will Levis is back up. Will Levis on a scramble went down early in the Titans-Dolphins game, which the Titans wound up winning semi-convincingly. I mean, neither team really could do much offensively. The Titans get a safety and a late Tony Pollard touchdown to kind of run up the score a little bit. I think it was 30-12. It had been like 22-12 shortly before that. But yeah, so going into their bye week, there's probably going to be some chatter about like, oh, is it time to make a change at quarterback for the Titans? Maybe it is. If this were like a team that was a quarterback, a game manager away from making a playoff push, kind of be one thing. I still think the Titans are deep in eval mode with Levis personally, and I think turnovers aside, which if we get to a point in the season where we want to talk about that, there's potentially things to be said in Will Levis's defense about those turnovers. But I think they still got to see what they've got there. But then Lions Seahawks, man, that was a banger. Colt, did you catch much of that one?
That was a really, really good game. I had Gibbs in a league
game of the season so far.
Yeah, it was a really fun game. I thought for sure. I mean, one team was 3-0, the other one I think 2-1.
Yep.
So two good teams playing off on Monday Night Football. Like I said, that's kind of what we want on the primetime games, and that's what we got. I think it was like maybe almost 70 points in between them. Like it was a ton of points, 71. And Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you can ask for more. Jahmyr Gibbs, I had him in a league, got 2 touchdowns like extremely early, and he didn't disappear. But I was just like, wait, I need more, please. You always hate when that happens. So you see Alvin Kamara, he does like the 4 touchdown game, the 6 touchdown game. It's like give him the Alvin Kamara role. But I digress. I want him to be healthy for next week too.
Yeah, the Lions like to give each back like their own drives and. I mean, it's gonna mean that Gibbs disappear. Both running backs disappear at times. Sorry to interrupt, but the running backs in that game, the Montgomery one, when he catches the ball and immediately hits the defender, and they it's like pinball. He immediately bounces off, and then the other one was Kenneth Walker does like a somersault while he's still on top of the defender. We've seen that freak play. It's like usually like every other year we see like somebody didn't quite go down, they run it for X amount of yards, sometimes a touchdown. And I thought that was going to happen. He does some weird somersault. It looks like he's how they do the videos in reverse. That's what I thought he was doing because it was such a weird play. But Kenneth Walker, 3 touchdowns, crazy night. Walker, he's been so tantalizing both years so far. Really, high highs and then times where you're like, oh, is he still the guy?
Yeah,
maybe in this offense because the Seahawks, they were down 21-7 at halftime, but they came in with some real questions like how for real is this team? They hung with the Lions. I mean, it winds up 42-29. They were in that game to the end. Geno Smith was fantastic. They acquitted themselves well to the extent that there were real questions about can this team really compete? They can compete, and the offense looks good. It has modernized. The Pete Carroll kind of quasi modernized Stone Age ball where I'll throw it enough to keep the fan base from getting their hackles up too much, but I want to run the dang ball. That's done. They will go trips wide, or trips to one side of the field, and 5 wide is as much as any team now. But in this offense, I think Kenneth Walker could have a potentially RB1 type of stretch rest of the way if he can stay on the field, and that's kind of always been the caveat with him, like it is with a lot of guys. Yeah, I really like what I saw from him.
And Gino, 400 yards, like career highs, basically all around. And you think about Kenneth Walker, we didn't really talk about him a ton in the offseason, but we thought it was going to be like kind of a vanilla offense, but like also a pass heavy offense because of the changes that they've made. You got DK, you got Lockett, you've got JSN, like everybody's kind of getting worked in. And so Kenneth Walker shouldn't see any stacked boxes. 3 touchdown night, like that's encouraging. Explosive, home run plays, like that's kind of been his MO. And bright future for him.
And the offensive line has looked a little bit better. I mean, they were expected to be like a bottom 5 unit, so it's hard not to overperform those expectations. But it's been good enough. So wheels up for the Seahawks offense. So obviously there's injuries every week, but there's a big one to talk about this week, right? I mean, the friendly fire heard around the world, I think we could call it. Tell us about what happened early on in Chiefs Chargers yesterday, Colt.
Yeah, so early in the game, we have a play where Rashee Rice, he becomes the defender, right, and he's going to swat the ball out. I believe he successfully does swat the ball out.
He did.
And Patrick Mahomes just blows right into Rashee Rice's knees on accident. He's carted off the field. It all immediately ruled out. For the next week, so week 5.
Yep.
But yet they're not telling us whether it's an ACL, MCL, literally any kind of knee.
Right.
So you had a little bit of a tinfoil hat theory about this. Go ahead and explain to the viewers what you think's going to happen.
So full disclosure, my Rashee Rice exposure, kind of like you were saying, could not be much higher. I'm all the way in. I've got my kids' college funds are in Rashee Rice stock. Okay, so I need this to be right. But okay, so the thinking, as much as there is any intelligent thinking in lieu of facts amongst the Fantasy Index community so far, the thinking is that if it's an ACL, they probably knew 15 minutes after. An ACL, so I'm told, team doctors, medical, training staff, they can diagnose that by feel most of the time, just by feeling the knee. So if it's an ACL, just logically, and they know it's an ACL, what is there to gain for the Chiefs by not just putting him on IR right now? His season's over anyway. Why play these games? You actually told me right before we started that word on the street is that the Chiefs are going to wait until next week to announce whatever this injury is. So given that, and the fact that the Chiefs do play next week, but then they have their bye the week after that, my thinking now is that the Chiefs maybe don't believe that this is a season-ending injury. But they do believe it's longer than a 4-week injury, which you put a player on the short-term IR. After 4 weeks, they have to come off of IR, and open their practice window and all that. So, if we're not going to hear anything until next week, then there's going to be a lot of sitting around wondering. But my thinking right now is, okay, the Chiefs are planning to get this guy back, but it's not going to be anytime soon. They're going to carry him on the active roster in week 5 to get to the bye week, where they don't have to announce anything about their roster because they're in their bye. And then in week 7, they will put him on short-term IR. He's out 7, 8, 9, 10. And after that, we don't know. That's kind of where forest for the trees my mind goes. Because, again, if it's an ACL, what do you have to gain by playing this game and potentially irritating the NFL?
Yeah, there's a few different lenses you could look through it. I mean, they're playing the Saints, which the Saints started off really hot. I think they lost the last 2 games, but maybe they're playing cat and mouse. Like they just want to be. It's kind of like when you have a quarterback. It's like, oh, our quarterback is definitely going to play this week, definitely, and that's like the key offensive player of your team. So maybe they're thinking that with Rashee Rice, but also maybe they're doing exactly what you're saying there. Like it's so hard to judge. I thought Justin Herbert wasn't going to play this week because his high ankle sprain. Like It made a lot of sense because they're going into their bye here this week, but they didn't play it that way. So it's hopefully we get some news before waivers run, because if it's like a season long, obviously you don't want to roster that player for much longer. And if anything, if you have multiple IR spots, please throw them there first, just until you get some kind of clarity. But yeah, Rashee Rice is, man, he burned too bright.
Exactly. We can't have nice things, Colt. We can't have nice things, and he was a very nice thing. And yeah, sorry, if it comes out on Wednesday that, oh, never mind, Rashee Rice's ACL is toast and he's gone, and our advice here made you hang on to him and not go grab the shiny new toy off the waiver wire when waivers processed. Mea culpa, lo siento. All right, well, Cole, I saw that in the show notes that you had potentially some buy low candidates to talk about. Why don't you lead us into that before we touch on any more injury stuff?
Yeah, so we're a quarter of the season through. We're 4 weeks in. I just wanted to go ahead and run by a few names. I'll run them by you of players that I think you could buy low, and then some that you can sell high. So just want to run them by you. George Pickens, he's currently the wide receiver 36. He leads all wide receivers in receiving yards without a touchdown. Yep. So logic would say he needs a touchdown. Touchdown should have been his way already. Mm-hmm. He has the same exact stat line as Brian Thomas Jr., rookie wide receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And he has 2 touchdowns, and he's a wide receiver 12. So that's how drastic of a difference it is between them. So, yeah, I mean, and Pickens has looked great so far this season. Even against Surtain, he didn't do a lot, but and some of the plays were called back, but he was battling out there, and Surtain's just kind of shut down everybody. So he's somebody I'm looking to buy. Brock Bowers, back-to-back bad weeks. He had a tragic drop like early in the game, kind of got into his head, I think. But a couple of I guess it's pass funnel defenses for them with the Broncos and the Steelers. So yeah, Brock Bowers, somebody I'm trying to buy if somebody's willing to deal him. Yeah. Travis Kelce. We just talked about Rashee Rice for a couple minutes. Travis Kelce's target share in weeks 1, 2, and 3 was 14, 8, and 12. And then Rashee Rice goes down at the beginning of this game, and his target share is 31%. That is elite. That is what Travis Kelce is used to getting, and he finally had his first good game. Is that a coincidence? I think not. And then the last one I have here, Amari Cooper and Courtland Sutton, I kind of put them in together because they're both 5th and 6th in targets. Yeah. They both have 25% target shares. Josh Reynolds is 2nd in targets on the Broncos, and he has 17. Courtland Sutton has 35. Like, this last game, you can kind of throw out, it was the Jets, it was a rain game, like it was really weird. Yep. But I dug into the data just a little bit further. In 2023, so last year, 8 of the top 10 wide receivers had a 25% target share, which kind of makes sense. You're getting targeted a lot, you're going to get a lot of points. Yep. Let's look at the sustainability of that. So I look back in that target share. Again, looking back in last season, weeks 1 through 4, we had 16 wide receivers who started off the season with a 25% target share. 12 of the 16 still sustained that 25%. Wow. Only 4 of them didn't. And that was Zay Flowers. He ended at 22% and ended as wide receiver 30, but he had his games. Brandon Ayuk, 22%. Wide receiver 14, Chris Olave at 23%, wide receiver 19, and Hollywood Brown at 20%, wide receiver 33 in that stint that he played. All of those finishes are higher than what Amari Cooper and Courtland Sutton are right now. So they're the wide receiver 39 and 43. So I think you could definitely buy them low and get some arbitrage, buying low, selling high. Those are my buy low candidates, and I love those. What's your opinion on them? I kind of rambled for just a moment there.
No, you nuggets, manna from heaven, my friend. I love Pickens. I don't think you're going to get him at kind of a buy low price, but even paying MSRP on him right now, Justin Fields has been nothing short of a revelation so far. I mean, he threw over 300 yards yesterday. He went into the fourth quarter with 120, but I mean, whatever. He got the yards before the final whistle. So yeah, the Steelers' offense has potential, which feels crazy to say. And now Jalen Warren is out. Cordarrelle Patterson went down in that game too. Not expecting him next week. I mean, they're still going to run the ball, but yeah, Pickens is it's coming. There's just there's no way around it. Freiermuth is not going to be the guy every week like he was. Bowers, you're not getting him. I mean, that's crazy talk.
It's going to be expensive, yeah.
Kelce, same thing. That ship just sailed out of port at Mach speed. I love the Cooper and Sutton picks and the arguments for them. Plus, I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but you can't rule out the possibility that with the Rashee Rice injury, There's gonna be the Broncos aren't going to trade Sutton to the Chiefs, but Amari Cooper, I mean, that was a popular one on Twitter right away. Like, why don't the Browns send Amari Cooper to Kansas City? I don't think it's going to happen, but you never know. And Sutton in Denver, he's dominating the targets. He's going to keep dominating the targets because there is no real competition there for him, and they have to throw the ball sometimes. And Cooper, I still believe Njoku is an elite pass catching talent. When he returns, that he will ultimately reassert himself in the passing game. But high ankles are tricky. We don't even know if he's going to be back next week. And then when he is back, how close is he to 100%? He's not going to be 100% right away. So yeah, no, I love both those picks. What about your sell highs, guys? That you say you got some guys that you're looking to cut out on if you can.
These are guys that have been sitting in my starting lineup for the first 3 weeks. And then I'm like, you know what? Let me just bench them now because they haven't done anything. Burn me once, burn me twice, burn me 3 times. Like week 4, you've got to sit down. I do that. Michael Pittman comes out and has like 60 yards, which is more than he's had all season, in just like the first 2 plays of the game. And I'm like, are you kidding me? It's a great game. Joe Flacco came in at quarterback. So that's kind of where if Joe Flacco's in there for an extended period of time, I'm more excited for Michael Pittman. Weeks 1 through 3 with Anthony Richardson, the Colts were 28th in pass attempts and dead last in completion percentage. It was 49%. Like it's been really bad there. So Joe Flacco in for the Colts. That's great for all the receiving options. DeAndre Swift, like again, first 3 weeks, absolutely nothing. 22nd in rush attempts for the Bears, and yet they're 31st in rushing yards. So big game for Swift here. Out of nowhere, it seems like. And so, yeah, if you could sell him off of this game, please do. Nothing's changed for them. I'm trying to sell him. And then Juwan Jennings, he's still currently the wide receiver 5. He came off his really, really big career type game, 40-point game in week 3. Had a pretty good game here in week 4, but Debo getting back healthy, Kittle getting healthy, Ricky Pearsall coming back to the offense. Like, I'm not sure how much longer it lasts, and his snap percentage already cut in half from what it did from weeks 3 to 4. So if I can get anything for him, I'll try to. Otherwise, I'll just hold on to him.
Yeah, Pittman, he was more of a sell high before. Well, maybe you weren't selling him high before the Richardson injury, but he did have those plays while Richardson was still in the game, to be fair.
He did.
Now with Flacco out there, obviously his volume floor goes, we have to assume it goes up, but we also don't know how long Anthony Richardson is going to be out yet. We don't have a timeline, a firm one yet. I kind of go back and forth on that one. I mean, whatever. Everyone on your team should always be available for the right price. So if you want to, see what people are willing to pay for Michael Pittman, I wouldn't fault you for it. Swift, yeah, I mean, he was good. He was good yesterday. To be fair,
he was crazy.
I mean, they tell us it's going to be a Roshan game, and they was lying. They was lying on us, Colt. But
look at the stat line: 16 for 93 and a touchdown, 5.8 a carry. But that's all 3 of his first 3 weeks. You could add all 3 of them together. He doesn't have 5.8 a carry. 7 receptions on 7 targets for 72 yards. Like. Yeah. Absolutely blows the doors off. 26 points out of nowhere. Like, I don't. That's the hard part about selling these players. It's like sometimes you have to sell, like the Chris Godwin, right? Nobody expected him to be the wide receiver 1 or whatever he was for like the first 3 weeks, and so it's like, do you think that's going to keep happening or not? Like, it's hard to sell somebody after 1 week, but if you can, I would try to capitalize on those 3 names.
The thing that gets me with Swift is we know he has talent. We've always known this. It wasn't a question of like, does he have an intriguing blend of talent? Can he stay on the field? Can he be consistent? That's been the rub here. And I mean, the Bears' offense, obviously, it has to improve, or heads are going to roll. So I don't know that the last 2 weeks against Indianapolis and now against the Rams, where they get a much needed win, we're not calling that like leaps and bounds type progress. But I think the general mood is that, okay, we're taking baby steps in the right direction here. That seems to be the refrain of Bears fans anyway. It's tough. I mean, against a decent Rams run defense yesterday, I mean, Swift gives you exactly the kind of game we were all hoping for. When the rest of the offense isn't even good, like what if the offense starts to get their act together? this time last year, the Packers were in the toilet. I mean, Jordan Love was really struggling. They get killed by the Lions in Green Bay, and go on a bit of a losing streak. So I don't know. With the state of running back, it's you gotta talk to your parish priest on that one. I think it's. I know you don't want to chase the one game, but you may kind of have to sometimes. And then Juwan Jennings, I will say, Brandon Ayuk's,
he looks good.
He's good, and Brandon Ayuk's struggles, and then the whiny,
the short incident.
Yes, short gate with Shanahan, where Shanahan is like, the body language is, you can tell without even having the audio, you can tell Shanahan's like, bro, but why are we arguing about your shorts right now? Earlier, or what was it, last week, or was it in walk around in practice today? I don't remember what it was, but yeah, Ayuk was wearing the wrong color shorts, and Niners have a practice dress code, and they were like, dude, go put on the right shorts, and Ayuk had a stink about it, or it was before the Patriots game, and it's just there's a weird air around Ayuk and Shanahan right now. They've had their differences before. Let's not forget that was a few years ago, but I mean he's got the money, so yeah, they're going to keep giving him the ball. But yeah, if you can get somebody to give you something for Jennings, sure. But if you can't, I mean, you're not going to drop him right now. So
yeah, absolutely. You're not dropping him. You'll hold on to him. Let's go ahead. Let's get into the injuries, shall we? Yeah, there's a couple to talk about. We've already talked about Rashee Rice. Obviously, stay up to date on that. Check out socials. That's where you're going to get most of your news. Check out the Fantasy Index website, fantasyindex.com. Of course, we're gonna post an article there as soon as we get any breaking news with that.
Of course,
Malik Neighbors, he was diagnosed with a concussion. He played on Thursday Night Football, so he'll have over a week to come back. He should be good to go. I would expect him to be, but keep in mind that Nick Chubb, he's expected to practice this week, so it opens up his 21-day window to officially be active.
Unbelievable.
That's crazy. That's awesome. On the flip side, Jonathan Brooks. The Panthers are not opening the practice window for Jonathan Brooks, and probably rightfully so. Get him healed up even more. Chuba Hubbard is out there killing it, back-to-back 100-yard games.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, they're kind of full steam ahead with the Panthers. Tank Dell expected to be back for week 5. He had a plethora of injuries. I think it was rib and hand injuries. Christian Watson, high ankle sprain. They said he's probably going to hit the IR. Jonathan Taylor,
it looked bad.
Mild high ankle sprain, possible short-term IR as well. That's the 4-week one. Anthony Richardson, hip pointer injury. Have you ever heard that before? Hip pointer?
It's a little bit. I'm not gonna say old-fashioned, but it's one they used more back in the day. You don't hear it as much these days.
Yeah, we're gonna heal this up with some turpentine. I don't know what they're gonna rub on him to fix
Epsom
that, but
salts.
Yeah, you just take a bath of Epsom salt. Yeah, there you go. Travis Etienne, shoulder injury, doesn't seem to be too serious, but it is worth monitoring. And then we will obviously talk about Tank Bigsby here in just a moment. Raheem Mostert was out on Monday Night Football, and Jeff Wilson got injured in pregame warmups. I don't know what it is with pregame warmups. Evan Ingram, Jeff Wilson, so that be prepared in all instances, especially Monday Night Football. Khalil Shakir, he's dealing with the ankle injury. He's wide receiver 18 right now. I'm not saying I'm going to eat my words, but he's been decent for the Bills, who haven't really had any pass catchers. I did say he would start hotter than Keon Coleman, so right. But yeah, I'm curious how it ends rest of season. Cordell Patterson,
51 yards last night. I mean, it's not over yet.
Yeah, we'll take that. Cordell Patterson, Steelers running back / wide receiver / everything. He has an ankle injury, and Taysom Hill, also the Swiss Army knife, but for the Saints, he's got a rib injury after getting 2 rushing touchdowns for you. So if you started him, which he started against me in a couple leagues, unfortunately, he's going to be out with an injury at the moment. All right. We're getting into the waivers. Let's talk about some drop candidates. I wrote this up. You haven't really seen the names yet, so I'm excited to throw them by you. We're going to assume 1 quarterback leagues. We're going to go with Trevor Lawrence. Let's start off with him.
Oh, man.
He's got a juicy matchup this week. He's got the Colts. Colts have been able to do basically anything on them, but he's the quarterback 20 so far in the season. Hasn't had a 14-point game so far in the season and 4-point passing touchdowns.
I'm going to go wishy-washy here. The Jags are 0-4. Everyone knows now, they're on track for Peterson to get fired at the end of the season if he makes it that far.
Yeah.
The owner of the Jags, Tony Khan, will probably let Peterson play out the string. But, I mean, they're playing for pride. Lawrence should have an okay game here. Like, yeah, the Colts secondary is one of the more permissive ones. The Jags gave the Texans a game yesterday. They really did. I mean, the Texans go down and win it on their last possession, okay, at home. So it's not like, they were terrible again. But I also, given the team's struggles, Evan Ingram is probably going to be out again. But, I mean, obviously Brian Thomas Jr. we love. I would start it. It's weird. I would start him, but I also wouldn't fault you for cutting him loose because like the Jags' schedule does turn back rough, and I mean in one quarterback leagues you've got Geno Smith out there, you've Darnold, Carr, like Trevor Lawrence is just not the forecast for Lawrence is not appreciably better than those guys at this point. It's just not.
Yeah. What about would you drop the quarterback 14, Patrick Mahomes? He's had 14, 12, 16, and 13 fantasy points. Week 12 of last year was the last time he had a 20-point fantasy game.
If you took Patrick Mahomes over Lamar...
Literally anybody?
Well, not Hurts. But you can't drop Mahomes, obviously. I mean, he's Patrick Mahomes.
Trade him, though.
With the Rice news, though, man, he's going to be a liability in one quarterback in like 10-team leagues. Mahomes is poised to be like a fantasy liability for the next however long. You can't drop him, but yeah, you're not.
You could trade him.
Yeah, I would trade him.
Trade him if you can. Yeah. I don't know who. Maybe to the Kelsey manager. Maybe they get the stack and they're like, "Oh, I'm so excited. I'll trade you Jalen Hurts because he has no wide receivers." Like that's something you could probably get done because they're on bye too. So
it is statistically likely that in your fantasy league there is someone whose backup team is the Chiefs because their main team is the Panthers or the Patriots. So, so the Cowboys. So,
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes.
So there's probably a Chiefs fan to go and dump him on.
Yeah. Javonte Williams, DeAndre Swift, both those guys just had good games. Finally. I'm trying to trade them. I'm not going to drop them, especially a running back that just had a good game. Somebody's just going to pay up for him anyway. So I'd see if there's any takers on those. Let's get into the nitty gritty of these ones. We got Zamir White, Carson Steele. Zamir White so far this season. Like if you went zero running back and went him, yeah, I mean,
he's dropped
44 yards, 24 yards, 34, 50.
Pierce came out today and said, Alexander Madison deserves more playing time and he's going to get it. Like what else do you need to hear? If Zamir White has a game, you can scoop him back up. But right now, his arrow is pointing due south. And I mean, I'm not going to victory lap here, but I never really saw the argument for White here. Like, he is an old school Stone Age North-South banger, and that's just not where the league is at unless you are an absolutely elite talent with the ball in your hands. And he's freak strong, but he's not freak elusive. He's far from it. So when Alexander Madison is outrunning you got a problem.
And we don't have Alexander Madison in the waivers here in particular, but he's somebody who could probably be rostered. I didn't add him. Listen to this upcoming schedule. At Denver, Pittsburgh, at Rams, Chiefs. Like, it's rough month ahead of these guys. So, and again, Antonio Pierce has also said Zamir White needs to get more running. And then just his snaps have depleted basically every single week. So, I'm not excited for either one of those guys. Obviously, Zamir White is somebody who I'm dropping. And if, again, all these situations, I'll say, try to trade them if you can. Just add them into a package deal so somebody thinks they're getting a starting running back or something like that. Carson Steele, he's fumbled basically whatever it was, first carry, second carry, and then saw the doghouse. It was the Kareem Hunt show from there on out. A little bit of Samaje Perine mixed in. Yeah. But Carson Steele, you probably paid up for him in a lot of leagues. Like there was one league I can remember that I was in. Somebody paid like 49, 50 fab, basically half their fab. Said nothing can go wrong, spending half my money on a fullback, and then had one good game.
He'll stay involved, I would imagine, but we can't see like if there's a point in the future where he's going to be back in the driver's seat. We can't see that far. But from what we see right now, Kareem Hunt is going to be the guy. And I mean, if you have a deeper bench, you have the room on your roster to let him hang around. Obviously, you want a piece of this offense if you can, but you also don't want to sit around like Deneric Prince, who was kind of a buzzy guy for the Chiefs in the backfield last year until it was clear like, oh, he's just never going to see the field again. So, I would cut Steele personally. I won't begrudge somebody who wants to, hang on, but also don't get snookered by the fab sunk cost fallacy, or like if you burn number one waiver priority on him. Well, not all the waiver wire guys are winners, guys. It's just the way it works out.
Yeah, they're not. Jalen Naylor, that's a drop. He, as soon as Addison came back, 2 touchdowns for him. Jefferson got a touchdown. He immediately went to third, fourth in the pecking order. So, yeah, Naylor was a guy who had 3. He had a touchdown every single game so far, and then just completely 21% of the snaps. Like, that's not something you can't roster a player like that.
The Vikings' pass volume is way down under Darnold, partially because Aaron Jones has been so good.
Yeah, absolutely. Naylor is the wide receiver 40. Would you drop the wide receiver 41? That is Garrett Wilson.
Colts.
You're not dropping Garrett Wilson, but I would trade him for George Pickens all day if I could get that trade done.
I wouldn't. I'm gonna stay on Garrett Wilson. I love George Pickens. How I feel about Georgie, but come on, like. We knew, so look at the forest for the trees, man. We knew coming in that Mike Williams was going to be slow out of the gate, still ramping up from the ACL tear. And we knew that he had a bit of a rough schedule, just had the Broncos, who, he was lucky to get out of there with 6-7 fantasy points. We knew it was going to be slow. But Conklin is coming on a little bit now. And now Mike Williams is getting a full, he had, I think it was 4 for 67 yesterday. The schedule starts to let up here. You got to give Garrett Wilson a little more time here. I think he's going to get there. The target, you were just talking about target share. Garrett Wilson has the target share. Aaron Rodgers is not going to throw it a ton, but he's going to throw it enough. I think you stay on Garrett Wilson. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Justin Fields has been great so far. He is still Justin Fields. This could still go badly. Okay, Aaron Rodgers doesn't have that particular risk.
That is true. Garrett Wilson has never missed a game in his career. So he's played, 17, 34 plus 4, 38 games. 38 games. How many games does he have over 15 fantasy points?
Not many. I'm going to guess.
I will give you a hint. I can count them on one hand. It is 5. He has 5 games over 15 fantasy points in half PPR leagues. Like, that is...
Out of his 38 games, how many times did Zach Wilson or Tim Boyle or Mike White start that? I mean, come on. Like, that's... We know that it's been disappointing. A disappointing experience owning Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this, like with Drake London. Like, how much are you going to hold the past against him? But yes, we are getting to that point where it's like, okay, you're out of time. You're out of excuses now. Like, look at Malik Neighbors. He's got Daniel Jones as his quarterback. He's setting the world on fire.
That's a great example. You're painting the picture for me.
I get it. But what are you you're gonna trade him for what? For George Pickens. I mean, I wouldn't.
Pickens last year had Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph and like one other guy that I can't remember, and he still had like 1,100-yard season and was a decent wide receiver. Probably a better finish than Garrett Wilson, if I had to guess.
Garrett Wilson, again, how many yards is Aaron Rodgers going to throw for? He's going to throw for at least 3,800 yards. You're not going to sit there and tell me that Alan Lazard is going to morph into a 1,000-yard receiver. It's not going to happen. That's not reality. Mike Williams could bow up for 900 yards, or at least like a 900,000-yard pace the rest of the way. If he does that not have upward pressure on Aaron Rodgers' passing totals for the rest of the season? I think you can argue pretty easily that it does, especially if Breece Hall continues to struggle. Jeez, he's been getting nowhere fast.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta summon some patience here. If Garrett Wilson doesn't start to do the thing in the next 2 weeks, okay, fine, sure. Then it's valid. Time to panic. But Mike Williams now running a full complement of routes, snaps. Tyler Conklin applying some pressure to the middle of the field. Garrett Wilson can still do it. He can. With these targets, he can.
Yeah. All right. Maybe we stuck on the wide receiver 41 for just a little too long. I got a few more names here. I'll just say cut/trade. So if you say cut, that means you're going to trade him or cut him, or keep. Okay, cut or keep. Keon Coleman.
I mean, it's all like in a 10-team league. Yeah, you can probably cut him. Like,
yeah,
there's not going to be a ton of competition for him on the wire. Again, like if if he finally does the thing, then you can scoop him up. I'm going to keep him because, at the end of the day, I think Josh Allen is going to throw for over 4,000 yards, especially, if Kincaid is not stepping up, somebody's going to at some point. Khalil Shakir's been great. How much more can he give than what he's already giving? I think it's an open and valid question. So I just don't think anyone has asserted control here. Maybe nobody will. I mean, Keon Coleman is legitimately 21 years old, 20 years old. Is he 20? Whatever. He's very young. There's a possibility that he just has a very slow rookie season. It's totally possible. Rashee Rice didn't start to come on until like week 7, week 8. Like, let's, just saying. So I'm trying to hang on to him, but yeah, if you're pressed, it's bye weeks, it's injuries. I get it. You can. I would let him loose reluctantly.
But Brandon Cooks, keeper cut.
Out. Sorry. Done.
Okay.
Gone.
Adonai Mitchell.
Gone. Yeah.
Mark Andrews.
Oh my God. I mean.
And again, cut means trade as well.
Sure, but for what? I mean, it's the end of day. I mean, the 4 horsemen are riding across the horizon in terms of the tight end landscape in fantasy. What are you going to get him? Johnny Smith? What are you going to do?
You could trade it for this next guy the last guy I have on our list here, Kyle Pitts.
Oh, God, I'm leaving. I can't. Have a good weekend, folks. Oh, man.
Yeah, the tight end landscape is absolutely awful. When we talk about tight ends, we've got a little nugget there. Let's go ahead and jump into our running backs.
Kyle Pitts, 0 receptions, 0 targets.
He must have started him.
He had a 0.00 separation score against man coverage this week. He had a 0.00 separation score against zone coverage against the Saints this week. It's over. Kyle Pitts is a drop. Period. It's not even about the math. It's not about anything logical at this point. You have to purge this kind of malevolent spirit from your fantasy roster to appease the fantasy gods. If Kyle Pitts is on your roster at this point, the fantasy gods are challenging you to dump him, and you must accept this challenge to reinvigorate your fantasy team's chances of winning. This is what I believe. These are my beliefs coming out now. And I need to say it to purge my Kyle Pitts demons because I have still 1 or 2 on my rosters that I'll be right back. I have to go.
We have to drop them now. I'm glad you had that segment, the Kyle Pitts segment. We talked about Garrett Wilson. All right, we're jumping into the running backs. This is where it actually gets a little bit interesting this week because we haven't quite had, kind of an uptick in running backs and wide receivers. I think this is one of the better weeks.
Yes. Really
so let's talk about him. One of your guys, I think you had a little bit of a flag planted for him.
Oh, yeah.
Chase Brown.
Mm-hmm.
He's owned in about half of leagues, 57%. So we got to mention him here. You might say, well, he's not available in my league. It doesn't appeal to everybody. So, but nevertheless, 15 for 80 and 2 rushing touchdowns. He had a pair of receptions on the ground for another 12 yards. Basically a 50-50 split with Zach Moss. He's worth a roster ad. I mean, in case you're, plugging him in and trying to play him, he gets the Ravens next week, which is a tough matchup for opposing running backs. But I think he's worth a roster ad regardless. Somebody who gets 2 rushing touchdowns, 80 yards, like that is not growing on trees. We're not dropping Javonte or DeAndre Swift, but so this is a good example of like opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, personally, if it was really between Chase Brown and Javonte Williams, I personally would have to really think about that personally. Chase Brown, I mean, he was not really he was seeing like a quarter of the snaps. He was returning kicks. He still is, but it turned out the kickoff rules like not really a big needle mover in terms of the number of actual kick returns we're seeing. So I think that coupled with the fact that the Bengals just needed to change up a little bit here and find something a little more reliable in their offense. Chase Brown and Zach Moss were great against the Panthers. Zach Moss was a guy that our Andy Richardson was kind of a fairly strong advocate early on in the summer. He kind of backed off on it when Chase Brown was getting a lot of hype in camp. And then obviously Zach Moss comes out and is leading the charge in this backfield early on. But I think the Bengals have now seized on something with how well Brown and Moss worked together in this game that they're going to go back to this well. I think kind of. I mean, they're not going to be David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, but they're gonna try to really run the ball for this next couple games, and not slow the game down terribly, but win some time of possession. Like go back to basics a little bit in game scripts with teams, and not have so much of it be on the Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase connection week in and week out. And I think it's smart, and I think the arrow's pointing up big time for Chase Brown. I did unfortunately have to drop him in a couple leagues, which I'm gonna have to go spend a bunch of fab to get him back. That hurts, but whatever. Water under the bridge. Yeah, Chase Brown is electric. I love him, and yeah, get him.
Yeah,
if you can.
Next guy on our list, Trey Sermon. He is the Colts running back now at this point. We've got to mention him because Zach Moss, we saw, I mean, he's a starting running back now for the Bengals. We just mentioned that, but he had a role last year when Jonathan Taylor went down. Jonathan Taylor, he's been injury plagued, man. I never label people as injury prone, but he's been plagued with injuries. Just kind of like they find him and they happen to find him. I think that was the one where it was mild, a high ankle sprain, but Trey Sermon, he's rostered basically nowhere. Yep. Only 2 running backs have carried the ball so far for the Colts, Jonathan Taylor and Trey Sermon. So he didn't do well in week 3. We kind of expected that. He played against the Steelers, plus Jonathan Taylor was out there almost the entire season, or entire game. But the Jags, they're on the schedule for week 5. That's a juicy matchup. Yep. If Taylor were to miss some time, it's not definitive just yet, but if he were to miss some time, he's probably at the top of my list. Just sheer opportunity, and especially if Richardson's out, I think that's better for him, and the fact they might get more dump offs from Joe Flacco or just be able to run the ball himself as opposed to Anthony Richardson taking the ball in from a few yards out. It's
so nice. It's like a blast from the past now when a team has a clear, obvious, like it's clean. This guy goes down, this guy becomes that guy. This guy's going to have basically the same workload. You almost never see that anymore, but that is what we think. So we have to think we're going to see for Trey Sermon here. Trey Sermon followed Shane Steichen to Indianapolis from Philadelphia after Sermon burns out with the Niners. He washes up in Philly, and then once Steichen takes the Indy job there last year, Sermon follows him there. So kind of like a Devin Singletary in New York with Brian Dabble. They previously got to know each other in Buffalo. So, yeah, I think Sermon's going to be the guy here. 18-plus touches a game is a possibility for sure. You have to try and go get Trey Sermon in leagues here, especially with Flacco at quarterback. I mean, go get him, 100%. Yeah.
Next guy on our list, Tank Bigsby, Jags running back, backup running back to Travis Etienne, but he's been getting some run. Like he hasn't had over 35% of the snaps in any game, but yet he's had 6 yards per carry, 4.5 yards per carry, 12 yards per carry, like limited opportunity and a change of pace back. You're going to have, higher yards per carry there, but 12 for 73, most recently here this last week, 7 for 90. Like that's incredible. Yep. He adds almost no value through the passing game. Right prior to this, I was showing Luke his 4 targets from last season. Half of those ended in interceptions because they just boom, straight off his hands. You, the listener, might have better hands than Tank Bigsby. So don't get it twisted there. But Travis Etienne, he may miss some time, may not. That's a shoulder injury. We're not too, we don't have a lot of information on it so far. But he's been, again, we know who the backup is in that situation.
Yes.
But yeah, I like Trey Sermon more, not necessarily as a player, but it sounds like Jonathan Taylor's is more serious. So far, if we're kind of ranking those.
Right. Yeah, even if Etienne were to miss in week 5, based on what we know right now, it could be a game-time decision, and then he's trending toward playing in week 6. Like you said, Jonathan Taylor's a short-term IR candidate right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And, whatever. As the starters, does you tell me, does Tank Bigsby on an 0-4 Jaguars team offer an appreciably higher ceiling as the main guy? His yards per carry have been lovely so far. That's the change of pace boost as far as I'm concerned. As the main guy, is he going to be appreciably better in fantasy than Trey Sermon? I don't think so, personally.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good debate there. I'm not sure who it is exactly, but I mean, you're going to have an opportunity to get both these guys. They're
sure.
minimally, rostered on people's teams. Justice Hill. Let's talk about him for a second. This is the backup running back again, or the pass catching running back for the Baltimore Ravens. He's rostered in only 28% of leagues. He's had more 50-plus yard receiving games than Zay Flowers so far in the season, which I thought was, not too bad. I think he's decent in PPR leagues, especially like people who are dealing with these injuries. They have the Jonathan Taylors. They have, the different players that we're already talking about. Like in a PPR league, Justice Hill could be a running back 2, arguably, just with how much of the volume he's been getting.
I don't know if anybody out there watched the Sunday Night Football broadcast last night with Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth, who are reliable, but Al Michaels got a bee in his bonnet and all of a sudden was like, and Justice Hill was rotating in when the Ravens were up big, and he's like, this next guy, this guy on the field for the Ravens right now, Justice Hill, which is where I think the Supreme Court should be relocated to. I was like, Al, you're feeling yourself tonight with these jokes. You're killing me.
I remember that. Yeah,
Justice Hill. Yeah, I mean, so the problem there is like, yeah, week 1 and week 4 he was great. He was a great scam play. What happened in week 2 and week 3? If you started him, it hurt. So, yeah, he's right on that fringe of like, if you're pinched, you got injury stuff, you got bye weeks, deeper league, you can throw him out there and cross your fingers. I mean, he's not far from like an Austin Eckler type play when Eckler is back out there. It's a similar proposition right now for sure. He's a good player, and if Derrick Henry were to get dinged up, then yeah, his appeal goes way up. I also worry though at some point Keaton Mitchell's going to be back, and what's that going to look like at that point? I'm not sure Keaton Mitchell comes out and like immediately eats his lunch, but it becomes a concern for sure. At least initially.
No, definitely. Since you were talking about Austin Eckler, I just want to talk about Jeremy McNichols real quick. The Commander's running back. He's been in the league for quite a while. He scored 2 touchdowns. Austin Eckler wasn't in there, and the Commanders have been rolling. I think, what are they, 3-1?
They are.
So far in the season. Is 2 touchdowns, 68 yards on 8 carries. Like Brian Robinson's still the dude, but McNichols kind of stepped in for Austin Eckler in the event that he was out. It was a concussion, if I'm not mistaken, for Eckler. So I wouldn't expect a long-term value there, but people are going to be picking him up, I think.
Yeah, I mean, McNichols was kind of helping mop up in a game that the Commanders surprisingly wound up kind of running away with, like one of the hottest teams in the league right now, the Jaden Daniels show in DC. Especially given, like, look at the names that we're talking about here this week. Sermon, Chase Brown, Biggs, like, these are guys that are going to be available in a lot of leagues.
Yeah.
It's hard to justify going after McNichols. If you're in a deep league, 14 teams plus, then yeah, it kind of comes onto your radar, especially if you're an Eckler owner. We're not sure what Eckler's availability is going to be next week, but yeah, I mean, it's to me, it's like kind of more like, oh, it's a nice story that guy been in the league forever. It's good for him. He got a couple touchdowns that he can tell his grandkids. But,
it's like what was it? Was the Lions tight end Shane Zylstra or whatever it was when he had 3 touchdowns in a game or whatever it was last year or the year before? Like that was so fluky. I don't think his roster percentage went up at all. Everybody's like, good for you, man.
Yeah,
good for you.
I had 3 touchdowns in a game once. Okay, Grandpa, let's get you to bed. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Speaking of old heads, Kareem Hunt. I mean, he just came up. They scooped him up off the street. He's available in about 60% of leagues. He comes in 5 yards per carry, 14 for 69, a pair of receptions, 16 yards. So used kind of all around the field. But my question is, was it because Carson Steele, who I think we mentioned already, fumbled like in the first quarter, didn't get another carry after the first quarter? So, and then, Samaje Perine, he's the only one who got a carry inside of the 5. What is it? Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's coming back from his short stint on the, whatever it was, the semi-IR that he was on.
NFI
like,
or whatever.
Yeah. So, like, does that muddy up the water? Like, if they're down Rashee Rice, like, I expect them to pass the ball a little bit more. Hunt has pass-catching chops. He's shown that, but so does Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and he's been with the team. So, I like Hunt a lot because I think you can get some times out of him, but I'm not sure what the actual usage is going to be there.
And I mean, obviously, Hunt's roster percentage is already somewhat high for a guy that got signed off the street a couple weeks ago. I think it's going to be Hunt, like, especially like the Rashee Rice injury. Like, they got to go with whoever the guys are that are playing the best right now that they can reasonably rely on. We're talking Travis Kelce. And the next guy on the list is Kareem Hunt. Like they're going to feature him in this offense. I really trust that. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, that's a total unknown. That is a total wild card. Obviously, he's got non-football stuff going on, and they're trying to do right by him and keep him on the roster and all that. But the Chiefs are out there to win football games right now. They're trying to do something historic here, win 3 in a row. So coming from where he's coming from, are they going to put him around the field? I just don't see it. I think it's going to be Kareem Hunt with some P. Ryan for sure. Especially, P. Ryan in full PPR leagues. If he somehow wasn't on, he needs to be now. For sure with Rice out. I think Hunt's the guy, especially with what he against a good Chargers defense. He carried the mail. He answered the call. So that kind of like Rice last year when they needed somebody, that's who stepped up. So I like Hunt there a lot.
Yeah, if I had to throw a dart, it would be at Hunt. But I have speculations like Hunt's over Justice Hill for sure, and probably over definitely over Tank Bigsby, I think as well. And then Trey Sermon, Hunt's probably over Chase Brown. Maybe he could be at the top of the list, arguably. Like you can make a case for it, but I think Chase Brown's just above.
For me, it's Chase Brown, Kareem Hunt, like bang bang. Brady Brown, I'm swinging for the fences. It's a talent thing, and the Bengals offense, still theoretically, there's a lot of gold in those hills. So, but Hunt obviously has tremendous appeal. Sermon, he could be awesome in Week 5, but then he could go right back in the box when Jonathan Taylor is back. But get as many. If you've got like Jaleel McLaughlin and Ty Chandler clogging up your bench, get those guys. I like those guys.
Yeah.
Get them off your roster for these guys if you can. Obviously, it's about winning right now.
Absolutely. Let's go on to wide receivers. Wan'Dale Robinson. He's rostered in 45% of leagues. He is tied in the NFL for third most targets. We're talking about bad quarterbacks. Daniel Jones is still targeting Wan'Dale Robinson. Fourth in receptions. He definitely has to be rostered. Malik Neighbors is no sure thing to start this next week. I expect him to. I think majority of us would. But, Robinson is a guy who has value on his own. He, like I said, you get targeted that many times, you're going to have fantasy points coming your way.
Yeah.
Alan Lazard, he's rostered in about half of leagues. He's a wide receiver 15 on the season. And I'm going to talk about Garrett Wilson, but I'm not going to go into it too much. I'll just say that he has more receiving yards than Garrett Wilson in 3 of 4 games. So say what you will about the player, about Alan Lazard needs to be rostered.
In the words of Rod Farva, the immortal words, I'm not going to dignify myself with a response to talking about Alan Lazard, okay? You know how I feel about it. You know how you should feel about it, Colt. Talent does matter at a certain point, sir. Alan Lazard doesn't have it. His time in the sun is dwindling, and it may have already elapsed. It may be over. Mike Williams is now healthy. Come on, Colt. Get it together, man. You're professional.
All right. I got you. Here's a guy who I had rostered in basically every single league, right alongside with my Rashee Rice. So maybe I go back into the well if Rice is actually gone for a certain amount of time. Dontavian Wicks, Packers wide receiver 1 sometimes, and sometimes wide receiver like 4 or 5. The Packers, they're just so weird. The 2 games with Jordan Love, weeks 1 and 4, Dontavian Wicks leads the team in targets, 16. He had 13 just last week in week 4, but he only has 5 receptions. He's had a ton of drops as of late. We were talking about that before the podcast, like dropping clear touchdown passes, but he's still getting targets. Reed, he has 11 targets on the season. That's the most with, or what was this? Reed has 11 receptions over those 2 weeks. And Wicks, he leads the team in end zone targets. Like he's the bigger body back. Certainly not the better player. By no means. That is Reed. He is the best Packers wide receiver. But Dontavian Wicks is somebody who needs to be rostered. Like I said, he has tons of targets. He just needs to fix his drop issues.
I watched Packers Vikings pretty much wire to wire. It was unbelievable. He 4 passes in a row, 2 of which were in the end zone, hit Wicks in the hands and wound up on the turf. It's not like these were contested catches where he got lit up by he got T-boned by the safety going over the middle. None of that. These are balls that your kid would catch in the backyard most of the time, and he's just dropping them. But
Well,
the Packers kept going to him, and he wound up with 2 touchdowns. I mean, on the one hand, like the drops have to get fixed immediately, but the Packers have shown like that they think he's good enough that even with those issues, they got to keep getting him the ball. And that's, I mean, he had a great day in fantasy in spite of it. So, I mean, they're showing us that he's one of the top 2 receivers on the team, especially with Seawatt now on IR. Just, guy can't catch a break. Although he's lucky he didn't catch a break with his ankle, because I saw that play. I thought for sure, oh, that's it. I mean, goodbye, Christian Watson. We'll see you in 2025. So he's lucky that he got away with only a high ankle sprain. But yeah, I mean, they're showing us that it's Jalen Reed and it's Dontavian Wicks, and Romeo Doubs is kind of, third wheel here.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure it wasn't Tank Bigsby that was out there on the field in Dontavian Wicks' uniform when he was standing in the end zone. I know we're just going to keep ragging on him.
Go to Colt's Twitter and watch the video that he retweeted of Tank Bigsby. It's so
bad, yeah.
It's amazing that happened.
_ Colt Williams on X. You can find me there. Also, DLuke87 if you want to check out Luke's stuff. But yeah, I mean, drops are one thing, but I will say, but this guy has a lot more targets, so I guess it's a little bit more. It's okay because the guy's been tired, but Malik Neighbors, he leads the league in drops with 7 so far on the season.
But that's kind of a good example. Like, if the team really believes in your talent, it's okay. I mean, Puka Nacua had some drops last year, so I mean, it does happen.
It does happen. Let's talk about a rookie wide receiver who I love, the best accent in the league by far. He's rostered in just about 40% of leagues. I mentioned him on the last 2 waiver wire episodes, but his roster percentage never went up. So I'm assuming people just aren't listening. But he has 10 targets here this game. I'm talking about Xavier Legette. 10 targets, 6 for 66. He has the mark of the beast, and he has a touchdown. Added 10 yards on the ground on a pair of rushing attempts. So they're just trying to get him active. They were doing that with Rashee Rice on the Chiefs last year. They were just like, any way we can get the ball in his hands, just to get him going. Deontay Johnson has been amazing for the Panthers. It's like we knew he was a good wide receiver, but what's the quarterback situation look like right now? It's Andy Dalton. They lost, but they're still sticking with him. He looked good still, and Legette Legette just was a person who benefited from that a ton. Tell me about this next guy, Trey Tucker. You're kind of planting a mini flag on it, one of those little orange ones you see in your yard when they're gonna like can't dig here kind of things. I think. Right. Exactly. What do you think about Trey Tucker? Are we gonna dig for gold when we find him?
I'm planting a utility company gas line flag. Like, don't nobody use a pickaxe right here, or there will be an explosion.
Yeah, he's explosive.
Exactly. There you go. So Trey Tucker's undersized. He's like 5'9", 185, but he's got some real jets. And I mean, when a head coach talks about a receiver, any sort of skill position player, like Antonio Pierce consistently talks about Trey Tucker, that gets my attention. And with some recent, pistols at dawn type talk between Antonio Pierce and other members of the Raiders, Devontae Adams is not getting traded tomorrow, but if the Raiders fall out of it again, it's a possibility. I mean, Devontae Adams, if the Raiders wind up 2-4, 3-5 at the trade deadline, I think Devontae Adams will be gone. So we're talking about a guy who's on the ascent, second-year receiver, in an offense where even with Adams on the field, there's a role for him, and Devontae Adams could be on the move. I mean, it would make a certain sense for the Raiders to get him moved now if they can't compete, and they probably can't. They're
in division.
No, they won't do that. Mark Davis will not okay that. But yeah. So just on that, really, what we're talking about is we're chasing the possibility of the vacuum of Devontae Adams targets leaving the offense. But also, he's a good player, and the coach really likes him. So, and they manufactured a rushing touchdown for him this week against the Browns, and it would turn into a dogfight as the Cleveland Browns defense has the talent to turn games into. So yeah, Tucker is a guy that I think should be rostered the most. I started him in my main redraft league this week. So that shows my degree of faith. And then obviously, Adams was out. We don't know what his availability will be next week. So yeah, I like Tucker.
Yeah, I mean, the week before, 7 for 96 and a touchdown. This last week, 5 for 41 and then a rushing touchdown. Like, we'll take that. They're using them. Like I said, this is just a second-year player, so we want to take a look at it. Another second-year player, Josh Downs. Again, as I mentioned with Joe Flacco, you're not a big Josh Downs guy, are you?
I never have been, no. No, I'm not.
No. I didn't like him a ton because of where he landed with Anthony Richardson. Like I said, I knew he wasn't a great pass catcher. I like Anthony Richardson for fantasy and maybe even for the Indianapolis Colts, but for the pass catchers, I mean, it just hasn't been fruitful, and we've seen that in the first 3 weeks of the NFL. But yeah, he went 8 for 82, and this is just his second game back. He's coming back here on the season after I believe it was an injury that had him sidelined. But a pretty good rookie season as well. I think he had 771 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like the 2 touchdowns is the part where it's like, that's not great. But that's a better rookie season than JSN had, Quentin Johnston. Like it was just about the same as Jaden Reed, but Jaden Reed had all the touchdowns. I think he had 10 there in his rookie season. But Josh Downs, he's a jitterbug, as we like to call some of these smaller guys who, 5'9", 170, just kind of moving around on the field. So
Josh Downs is 5'9" on the balls of his feet. But but he's kind of a Zay Flowers, Tank Dell type where, he can catch the ball in the short area of the field and manufacture some space relatively early on in his routes, and have volume days, kind of like he did yesterday with Flacco. We don't know what Richardson's timeline is really. Like, are we looking at a multi-week absence or what? We have to think it's a similar injury to what Kenneth Walker suffered. But also, a running back having any issues running is obviously you can't play. With a quarterback, it gets iffier. Like, Jordan Love, like for a running back or a wide receiver, that would have been a much longer injury. But because the quarterback position allows for some loss of mobility and you can still play, he was able to get back out there. So what I'm saying is we don't know how long Richardson's going to be out and what level of impairment to his mobility they'll let him go out there with.
I'm just imagining Anthony
a quarterback controversy here, letting Flacco play when Richardson can play. So
yeah, I was just imagining Anthony Richardson not running at all and just staying in the pocket. How bad that would be for the Colts! Like that would be so awful. If you just had him back there passing, like he extends plays, he extends drives, getting first downs with his legs. So, and just obviously an end zone threat to take it in by himself. So,
I'm tepid on Josh Downs is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. Jordan Whittington, every head must bow. I will say that Jordan Whittington this week, he led the Rams in routes run and in targets. He was 6 for 62. Like, we'll take that. Stafford looked not great, some would say, with his performance. He ended with like 4 fantasy points. I think it was a fumble, maybe an interception. Like it was not a great day for him. But Whittington is somebody who should be stashed in the event that, again, he's a rookie. While he is like 85 years old, he's still a rookie and he should be rostered. 2 other names here: Justin Watson, Juju Smith-Schuster. Should they be rostered at all if, we find out that Rashee Rice is, out for the rest of the season?
I don't see it.
Yeah,
I just don't
same.
see it. Like Justin Watson, I mean, come on. He's a special teams player. They'll throw it deep to him like twice a month, and he randomly hits a 40-yard touchdown. That's great, Justin. That's happy for you. But I don't see it. And Juju Smith-Schuster, like he just doesn't have it anymore. I don't think. There's a certain level of talent that you just have to have to be fantasy relevant, and I think those days are behind him. The Chiefs are going to have to do something. I don't know what they're going to do. It's possible that for a 1-3 team with an aging superstar receiver, not the Raiders, but the Rams with Cooper Kupp, maybe he would be available. Because people say Amari Cooper, like I mentioned earlier in the show, I don't think the Browns are going to admit to themselves that they're not contenders with Deshaun Watson at quarterback. I don't think they can withstand the PR, the optics of that. But the Rams, I think, can. I feel like they know Sean McVay's the guy, and like with Puka Nacua now, I'm not saying Jordan Whittington is like the heir apparent to Cooper Kupp yet, but it's becoming a possibility. would they move Cooper Kupp to the Chiefs if the Chiefs offered them, a second round pick? I don't know. Maybe it would take a lot of restructuring, of vigorous restructuring of contracts for it to make sense financially. Jordan Whittington in this offense, if he's on the waiver wire still in your league, if you're at all crunched at wide receiver, why not? Why not? I mean, the 2-3 week trajectory post Cup that he's been on, he's put Tyler Johnson back on the bench where that guy belongs if he's in the NFL at all. And sorry, not to giving the guy strays. And then who else does he have to worry about? Demarcus Robinson. Like, the Rams played the Bears. The Bears one of the best defenses in the league. And, that's why Jordan Whittington didn't have a bigger day. 97% of the snaps, 97% route participation, 28% target share. Like, these are the types of ratios that Nakua and Kupp at their best have given us. The numbers weren't there, but yeah, there's real potential here, especially in PPR. You gotta make Whittington a priority. I think. How could you not?
Yeah, he's somebody who should be rostered. I think at the end of your bench. Obviously, I'm not starting him just yet. I think you mentioned you started him in one league, which is like some freak stuff. But obviously, every league's different. If it's deep enough that
I did start him, it didn't work out.
Yeah,
but my alternative was Keon Coleman. So
Yeah, no, I get that. Let's move on to tight ends. We got just a couple names here. Tucker Kraft. This is Packers tight end. If you're wondering how bad the tight end position is this year, Tucker Kraft's first 3 games: 2 for 37, 2 for 16, 2 for 24, 0 touchdowns through the first 3 weeks. Has one okay game here, and it's I guess an amazing game for the tight end position.
Oh yeah,
6 for 53 and a touchdown in week 4, and he is now the tight end 9 on the season. Like,
Jesus.
I'm Tucker Kraft or Mark Andrews next week.
Oh, Kraft. Yeah. No, yeah.
Tucker Kraft or Kyle Pitts. Well, it sounds like you actually just absolutely hate Kyle Pitts.
I'll start Kyle Rudolph next week before I'll start Kyle Pitts, okay? I'm not kidding.
I'll start Greg Olsen.
I would there's not a team where I would start Kyle Pitts. As a matter of principle, I would start no tight end. I'm not kidding. You're laughing. This is not a joke. I will never start Kyle Pitts again. It is that serious. I'm done.
Show me your rosters. You'll have to send me screenshots of who you're playing over him and like any league that you have him in, and so I could just see. So
I'm gonna start Michael Pruitt over him in a league. In an experts league. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna send you a screenshot. I'll put it on the Twitter.
Okay, please do. I
can't do that, but I will not start Kyle Pitts. That much I vow.
What about Tyler Conklin? He's rostered in 36% of leagues. I was surprised it was so high, so much higher. I guess they were kind of chasing, what was it, 2 weeks ago?
Sure.
But the Vikings, they rank 5th against running backs, but wide receiver and tight ends, they beat them all day. They're pass funnel. So yeah, Tyler Conklin is a guy who I think you could definitely just plug and play.
And Tyler Conklin was a Viking.
Revenge game
now. Revenge game narrative I'm talking about here. Yes, exactly. Conklin's going to go for 150 here, folks. That's what Colt said. That's not me saying that.
Yeah, I gotcha. Quarterback streams of the week. Justin Fields. He's rostered in less than half of leagues, assuming he's starting, because I think the Steelers just took their first L of the season. Fields coming off a 300-yard game.
He'll be starting.
He just came off a 300-yard game, touchdown through the air, a pair of touchdowns on the ground, 55 yards on the ground. Like, that's what I wanted to see, because I've been starting him the first 2 weeks, and I benched him week 3. Had an okay game. I think it was like 18 points, and then a boom game right here, which that's what running quarterbacks can do. And that's, in this offense, like, their running backs are banged up. Like, that's kind of what we wanted to see. So,
sure.
Yeah, Justin Fields is a guy I think is definitely streamable. And then Joe Flacco, this is like certainly a deeper league type of thing, like a 2 quarterback. And there's no definite that he's starting by any means. But the Jags, they've given up the most fantasy points to the opposing quarterbacks. So if you're in a super deep league or a pinch or a dynasty league, like, Jonathan Taylor being banged up, I think just adds to Joe Flacco's value.
Yeah, but your league format is either going to dictate that Flacco is a must start, or is not relevant. So you'll know. Yeah.
He's not like Andy Dalton.
I don't think Fields is even going to be a streamer anymore after this week. Like, he ran for 2 touchdowns and he threw for 300 yards. he's going to get snapped up. I mean,
Yeah.
Sure they lost. Who cares? The Fields has been too good to be a streamer anymore. Like So no, I agree with that 100%. But when you pick him up, prepare to, if it's between him and Trevor Lawrence, you're probably going to stick with Fields. I mean, my God, I can't believe the things we're saying at this point in the season, but isn't that the case every year? All right. Well, Colt, how are your teams doing at the 1 quarter mark?
Yeah, so my favorite league, I'm 3-1 in, and the other one I am, I think, what is it? It would be 4-4, which is we play against the median, so basically 2-2. I was hoping I could beat the median here this week. I already knew my opponent blew me out of the waters, like Kenneth Walker I was going against and all this other stuff, so I was up against it. But yeah, we're doing all right in my most favorite leagues. How about yourself?
Rashee Rice injury hurt me quite badly.
Everywhere.
I'm fine. I'm fine. But in my main redraft league, the team that has the second most points scored against them has had 400 points scored against them. I'm at 500 points against me now through 4 games.
Every year.
Just 8 Rashee Rice. So got some ground to make up. But we will, because it's what we do, Colt. It's
what we do.
All right, folks, we will be back with you next week for another episode of Fantasy Goodness, unpacking all the injuries and big performances and guys we now decided that we hate even more than Kyle Pitts. After week 5 is in the bag, we'll be back with you next week. Stay safe out there.
See you then.
This has been the Fantasy Index Podcast. For more great content, premium rankings, and cheat sheets, head over to fantasyindex.com.